Welcome to episode 9 of FCLE Seminar, the Florida Civic Literacy Exam Podcast. I'm your host, Mercedes Musto. The FCLE podcast is where we review American history and landmark Supreme Court cases to help you prepare for the Florida Civic Literacy Exam. Today, we are taking a look at a very spicy landmark Supreme Court case called Mapp versus Ohio, 1961. This is all based on the guide put together by the Florida Department of Education. I've got the links to that study stuff in the show notes, so check those out. And don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe to our podcast at FCLE Seminar on YouTube. Got it? Great. Let's get started. Landmark Supreme Court case number 8, Mapp versus Ohio, 1961. All right, case background. This actually all happened in 1957, but in the court system, it takes some time. So here's what we got. Ms. Dalry Mapp was living in Cleveland, Ohio at the time when her home was raided by police on a tip that there could be evidence inside her home that was linked to a recent bombing. Crazy. So this case has nothing to do with the evidence that could possibly have been linked to the bombing. Instead, when the police were in there, they found what Ohio calls explicit materials. And in Ohio, at that time, the possession of lewd and explicit materials was illegal. This led to Mapp's arrest and subsequent conviction. Now, something doesn't sound right, right? Why? Because the Fourth Amendment guarantees the right of people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures. The court's decision? Mapp appealed on the basis of freedom of expression. Yes, she had explicit and lewd materials. However, she felt that she could appeal on the freedom of expression. However, how this went down is that the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Mapp based on the Fourth Amendment, not the First Amendment. And now, the majority opinion led by Justice Tom C. Clark declared that all evidence obtained by illegal searches and seizures is in violation of the Fourth Amendment and not admissible in a state court. This decision established the exclusionary rule. Now, this had a significant impact on law enforcement practices. The exclusionary rule, what is that? The exclusionary rule prevents government from using the most of the evidence that was collected unconstitutionally via search and seizure. See, the Mapp versus Ohio decision has been both praised and criticized. Supporters argue that it protects individual liberties and also deters illegal police conduct. But other critics contend that it can lead to criminals going free because evidence is excluded due to technicalities. Now, regardless of public opinion, the U.S. Constitution is the framework that protects individual rights, liberty, and freedom from the possibility of an overbearing government. The constitutional principle. We're looking at the Fourth Amendment here. The Fourth Amendment states, quote, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause. There's key. Next, supported by oath or affirmation and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized, end quote. So it looks like the law enforcement need probable cause and a warrant before barging in. The Fourth Amendment protects Americans from unreasonable searches and seizures. This act requires a warrant based on probable cause for any search or seizure. The Supreme Court has reinforced the Fourth Amendment's protections through cases like this, which ruled that illegally obtained evidence is inadmissible in court. Interpretation: in Mapp versus Ohio, the police went into Mapp's house looking for evidence linked to a bombing, but instead found other illegal materials and arrested her for possession. Well, those materials were indeed illegal in Ohio. And yeah, that was pretty much a rough day for Miss Mapp. Affirmation. Wow. This case is like a reality TV show. I mean, man, it's so interesting. I don't know about you, but the more I learn about the United States Constitution, the more I'm dazzled by how amazing it is to be a citizen of this country. Sweet. So thanks for hanging in there with me. And you know what? You are doing awesome. Let's review. Here are the key takeaways in the landmark Supreme Court case Mapp versus Ohio. Number 1, exclusionary rule established. This most significant outcome of Mapp versus Ohio was the establishment of the exclusionary rule. This rule states that any evidence obtained illegally in violation of the Fourth Amendment cannot be used in court. Number 2, the Fourth Amendment applies to states. So prior to Mapp, the Fourth Amendment's protection against unreasonable searches and seizures pretty much only applied to the federal government. But Mapp extended this protection to the states, ensuring that all individuals across the country had the same level of protection from unwarranted searches and seizures. And number 3, the First Amendment was not addressed. While the case initially involved questions about freedom of expression, the Supreme Court ultimately focused on the Fourth Amendment violation and didn't even dive into First Amendment issues. Hey, thanks for listening. Join us again on FCLE Seminar, a Florida Civic Literacy Exam podcast, so you can start studying for your test. The important thing is to start studying and start studying today. I mean, what are you waiting for? Like, subscribe, or leave your questions or comments for us at FCLE Seminar on YouTube, or hit me up on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. This podcast is listener supported. Contributions can be made via the listener support link on Spotify, or you can buy me a coffee via the link in the show notes. This is your host, Mercedes Musto. Join me again on FCLE Seminar, a Florida Civic Literacy Exam podcast, so you can pass the FCLE.